yeah. I believe in you, me, you, me, you, me, you, me, yeah. Let's stay here for a lifetime underneath the light, 'cause I don't want us to go. No, I don't want us to go. Yeah, you could be my lifeline, you could be my sunshine in a world so full of pain. Can you make it go away? Used to be so sad that love was lost, but now it's here to stay. Yeah, I used to be uncomfortable, but look at me today. Never thought I'd find someone like you, someone to show the way. But now I know you're the answer to my prayer. You and me must be right. Something's in the air, I can feel it now. You and me must do something right. We can't get enough of us. You and me every night, aiming for the stars with the love so bright. You and me must do something right. Baby, I believe in us. I believe in you and me, you and me, you and me, you and me, yeah. I believe in you and me, you and me, you and me, you and me, yeah. I'm sorry for the burden, sorry I was hurting, but my scars are almost healed. Yeah, my scars are almost healed. Yeah, I'm feeling like a child now, everything's alright now, and it's all because of you. You made the flower in me bloom. Used to be afraid of everything, but now there's no more fear. Yeah, I used to let nobody in and hide my face with tears. Always thought of you as someone who can love someone like me, but I was wrong, baby, now I believe. You and me must be right. Something's in the air, I can feel it now. You and me must do something right. We can't get enough of us. You and me every night, aiming for the stars with the love so bright. You and me must do something right. Baby, I believe in us. I believe in you and me, you and me, you and me, you and me, yeah. I believe in you and me, you and me, you and me, you and me, yeah. You and me must be right. Something's in the air, I can feel it now. You and me must do something right. We can't get enough of us. You and me every night, aiming for the stars with the love so bright. You and me must do something right. Baby, I believe in us. I believe in you and me, you and me, you and me, you and me, yeah. I believe in you and me, you and me, you and me, you and me,
Mm. 3, 2, 1. Hello, beautiful people. I am back. And I'm better. Welcome to the Danae Show. I am Danielle Danae, aka Danae, and I've got a lot to say. So let's get into it. So today, guys, we're going to talk about my guest appearance on the hit YouTube sensation Fresh and Fit. Now, if you don't know this podcast, Fresh and Fit is a podcast that was created by two people. First is Myron Gaines. His real name is Myron Gaines. He's also known as The Fit in Fresh and Fit. And then there's Walter Weeks, who is known as Fresh and also goes by Fresh CEO, whatever. And basically, their show is about, they talk about politics, they talk about gender dynamics, they talk about relationships and personal finance as well. So I came on, they do the show Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And on Wednesdays, They invited this group of women, and typically all these women disagree with a lot of their viewpoints on relationships and gender dynamics. A lot of feminist type women. And initially I was like, oh, I watched their show all the time, and I think their content is great on Myron and Fresh's part. Typically, I disagree with the women. I agree with Fresh's and Fitz's point. But I always watch the show. I never thought to be on the show because of the majority is women that go against what he believes, and I actually believe what they believe, what Myron and Fresh believe. So I was like, I don't know about it, but my man was like, he set it up. He was like, no, I want you to go on there. I want you to stand on your beliefs. I want you to dare to be different. You guys remember that slogan in school? Dare to be different in a sense, and just be you. And it's going to be, a refreshing change. You're going to stand out. And a refreshing change in a sense where, I'm not the majority when it comes to the way I think, and to be put in a situation that might be a little uncomfortable. I've never been featured on a podcast like that. But I wasn't uncomfortable at all. Surprisingly enough, I went on, I had a great time, even though I disagreed, I knew I was going to disagree with a bunch of the women. Nobody was extremely disrespectful. Nobody was extremely rude. So it was fine. And even if they were, I would have, I always, I've grown so much in the past year or so. And I underestimate my growth so much that, a year ago, I would have been bent out of shape for somebody disrespecting me or, trying to clown me or whatever. But now I just laugh at it, and I kept it. I smiled a lot throughout the show, and people that I know realized that. They were like, you kept your cool, you're smiling through the BS. But yeah, that's what I did. And it was interesting. Like I said, they speak about personal finance as well, and that's typically on Mondays. Like I said, they do this Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And oddly enough, they had Grant Cardone on that Monday of last week. So I was on for the second. I think it was the 31st of last month. They had Grant Cardone on, and I actually know Grant Cardone very well. I speak with him on Chatter from time to time. But if you don't know who Grant Cardone is, he's actually a real estate mogul. So it was interesting that they had him on the same week that I was on, because like I said, I know him very well. But if you want to look up my video that I featured on, it's called Look on Fresh and Fit, and my video is called Who Has It Harder on Social Media, Men or Women? And there's also a short they clipped later that is called 304 Tried to Clown Myron, but she rage quit instead. Now, when he's talking about this 304, he's obviously not talking about me. There was another girl, a blonde young girl, 24 years old, I believe. And she tried to, clown Myron. She did, with her points and make him seem like he was so far-fetched in his beliefs, but actually her beliefs were a little out there, crazy. But yeah, it's also something I noticed when I was on the show that, there was a whole bunch of flip-flopping, a whole bunch of going from one topic to the next, and it was so crazy, and a lot of the stuff didn't make sense, especially when this blonde girl, I forget her name, but this 304, Myron's mentioning it as a 304, she would talk so much and move the goalposts. Myron would make an initial point or ask a question, and then she'd answer it and give a whole bunch of different answers, not answering the question directly. I even mentioned one of my responses, I was like, you got to justify every question. Like, just answer the question. It's so weird. And I even clipped these clips on Instagram, and I said, and I captioned when I posted this clip of me saying that, you have to justify every question. Most times when people have to justify or feel like they have to justify everything they say, it just screams insecurity and screams inauthenticity. And I really think it was both. And mind you, I don't know if Myron and Fresh know this. I don't know if there's a camera behind the scenes, but before the show went on, we were all in a room, because the way the show works, they have a guest host. This guy was called Homath that they had on before us. And sometimes that runs a little long. So, the show ran a little long. And also, I think girls they'll pick up girls off the street to do this Fresh and Fit podcast. I had my manager hit it up, my manager. But sometimes if they need women, they'll just get them off the street. And they got some girls prior off the street, but they ended up, wanting to leave because they had dinner reservations. So a lot of the delay when I was on was because they were trying to get women there. And surprisingly enough, this 304, that I keep on calling her 304 because that's what Myron called her. I don't remember her name. This blonde chick that was on my episode, she wasn't even supposed to be there. Like, she was a last minute pick. They called her last minute. They said she'd been on the show 3 or 4 times before. So she was very familiar with how the show worked and everything. So it was interesting that she, spoke the most and even got up and left when she knew the dynamics of this show. I asked later at the end, it was so funny. I asked later the team at the end, I was like, did she get up and leave the other times before? And they were like, no. So I don't know. There's something about this episode, I guess, that really triggered her. But the thing is, I wanted to talk, me bringing up, that we all sat in a room prior to the show, like the white blonde girl didn't say this, but there was another black girl that was sitting next to me that was also talking a lot. But in this room, she was saying that she was going to troll on the show. She was saying that, she was going to say stuff to get views and who cares, if people think you're crazy. She was trying to convince another Somali girl that was also in the room that actually also ended up leaving early along with the blonde girl. And yeah, it was like she was trying to convince her it was okay to be a little raunchy or whatever just to get views. Right. And the Somali girl was like, I don't know about that. My family's watching, I don't want them to make it seem like I'm one way when I'm not, all this stuff. Right. So, yeah, that's why a lot of the time you can see, like, I had several pauses. I didn't speak as much as the other 2 girls, mainly because they were just so loud and I don't like yelling on a podcast. You're not going to take me out of my element just because you're acting a fool. I'm not going to join you. But also because she said she was trolling, so I didn't know she said this black girl said she was going to troll, and I didn't know whether or not, like, she was trolling with the stuff she said. It's just like, but Myron and Fresh obviously don't know that in the moment. So they're looking at her crazy. They're asking follow-up questions. And I'm just like, I don't care enough to know. Because like I said, I really felt like she was trolling most of the time. But there were points where she was making valid points. And yeah, I agreed. And there were points that even Myron agreed when she talked about, the dynamic between men and women. A bunch of hot girls, they look past their future husbands a lot, or potential husbands, just because they feel like they got better options, or, they're petty about things they like about them, things they don't like about them, or would like about them and don't like about them. Like, it's just so ridiculous how many women are so picky, and I always ask where the good men are at. But if you look in their DMs, there's a bunch of them. They're just not the men they want, right? But back to the initial question, the title of the show, it literally said, who has it harder on social media, men or women? And it was hard for me to get into this point because Myron was making the point that it's men who have it worse on social media because women have all these options and have all the DMs. Even the most basic looking women have men, wanting to be with them on Instagram. But when it comes to men, it's like, no, their options aren't like that unless there's some super sexy fit model. And even then, it's like, it's not nearly as much as a woman who's super fit and a model and all that, which is absolutely true. But when the other girl, this blonde girl, mentioned that, she said that women have it worse because, she said that women are constantly comparing themselves to other women, seeing the BBLs and, the fake boob jobs and all that, and constantly comparing themselves to that and thinking, men actually like that and being insecure in that sense. And I was just like, okay, well, I think, I was a big advocate on 2 things can be true at once, right? And I still am. I think women have it hard and easy. I do. And that's why it was so hard for me to, interject, because both had valid points. The reason I think women have it hard and easier on social media, harder and easier on social media, is because women have all these options, like Myron said, and you would think it would be easier, to have all these options. But again, to Myron's point, it's a lot of options that women don't want. So again, I get why he's saying men have it worse and women have it easier. But yeah, I get an easier in that sense. right? That women have all these options, but also having too many options gives you a fake reality. And that's, I think this is why women have it worse, not more so to her point, but more so to this point when she was mentioning, women have it worse because of insecurity. I think women have it worse because a lot of options, like I said, give you this false sense of reality. Like you have a lot of options to get married to these men. And then you go through life asking what the heck happened. And it's just like, no, you think, like I mentioned this on the show, like women equate likes to men who actually want to marry them. And the men that actually want to marry them, they don't want to marry. And it's freaking ridiculous. The smart ones get it. They see the good man that can provide and do all that, and they lock him down quick. But a lot of women feel like there's always something better out there. And the moment they see a man and he seems good at first, it's great. It's all flowers and butterflies. But the moment he corrects her when she's wrong, or wants her to start cooking or dressing more conservatively, now you think you can just dismiss him, discard him like old tissue, and move on and get another man. And that's simply not the case. If it was the case, more women would be in relationships, solid relationships, and not complaining about men being terrible. It's because you're terrible. I always say you attract what it is you're willing to entertain. I say all the time, for really beautiful women, it's not, you're going to attract all different types of men. So it's not you attract who you are all the time. It's you attract who you entertain. If you entertain men who are crappy, then you're crappy yourself. It's just straight facts, So again, women have it easier and harder. Easier in the sense they have more options, harder in a sense where they have this false reality in their head, right? So that's why I didn't really get into that whole thing. We talked about so many topics. Again, we were jumping from all over the place, but that specific topic I didn't interject too hard on because, again, both of them I thought were right, but it was more to those points than what they were trying to say, right? Or well, kind of what Myron was trying to say, but not so much what the girl was trying to say, because insecurity, like we're not talking about like that's a personal issue. And even the most insecure women is going to have men in their DMs. Like literally Myron's point was just who has it harder for dating. And the insecure thing, it could be a problem in a relationship, but there's so many insecure women in relationships. It's not as much of a problem as she was making it think to be. Like that was a whole point in what I was saying too. Like a lot of the times women love to speak of the minority instead of the majority, or what happens the least versus the most. And it's just like to have a productive conversation, there's no point in speaking about what happens 10% of the time versus 90% of the time. Obviously they kept on making the point that not all women are the same, but most things we can agree happens often versus something that doesn't happen as often. So yeah, it's so funny when and you could tell, she felt like she was getting ganged up upon, her and this other Somali woman that was next to her. They felt like they were getting ganged up upon, so they had to be extra defensive on their points, and make the point that not all situations are the same. But the fact that so many women think they're the exception is complete delusion. And because the women who actually are the exception understand what the rule is. They understand what the rule is. They're not as defensive about it as these two women are. So again, I think the defensiveness just came from them, trying to make other people believe their lies and delusion versus, them actually believing what they said and wanting to fight for a point they deem to be valid. There's two different things, and I could see it in these two girls. They were, trying to push their delusion onto two men that, eat that shit up every day. They're eat delusion up, devour these girls that come in on their show with this delusional type of mindset. And, I think even though it was the old girl's fourth time, somehow that didn't click in her head at this time that Myron would devour her. Like, I don't know if they did the times before. I haven't seen her, this white girl on this show 4 times before. I haven't seen her other episodes, but I can only imagine Myron probably just seeing how the way she spoke and carried herself went in on her before. So I don't know what made this show different, But I don't know. I told my boyfriend, I think maybe it was because, the black girl, the other black girl in there other than me, not the Somali, but there was another black girl, was going in on her with her points, going hard, being loud. And maybe that's what shook her up, because I was explaining to my boyfriend, women get bent out of shape when they feel like the sisterhood is going against them. A man can go against them all day in today's times. Women hate men. Women think men aren't valuable for ish, so they're not going to value so women are not going to value their opinions. But when it's a fellow woman, saying the same things as a man, it's so mind-boggling. It's the utmost level of disrespect in their mind, and they can't handle it. It was proven in the show. The white girl and the Somali girl ended up leaving because they couldn't handle the truth. They couldn't handle us being like, no, and calling them out like, no, this isn't right, and calling them out on their ish. But even I had to call, I thought the black girl, the one that said if she was initially trolling, I thought she was coming with a lot of, initial facts after, the trolling in the beginning. So if you guys don't watch the episode in the beginning, they ask you your name, your age, where you're from, if you're in a relationship, and what your occupation is. And initially, this black girl, she said, I don't remember what she said about occupation and everything, but I remember they asked her the body count. That's a question that they didn't ask me and other women, but they asked her. I think they know who to ask that to, because her other answers were so crazy. They were like, okay, so what's your body count? And she said too many to count, something like that, something drastic. And they were just like, ugh. But I knew she was trolling when she said that, obviously, because I think she made it later like it was in the thousands, said she had sex this many times since she was 15 years old, whatever. So after that, after she was trolling in that aspect, but then holding a white girl accountable for, her, because I think the white girl was in a relationship. She said she worked on Netflix and she was dating someone that also was in the film industry, I believe. But there was a point Myron was making that, your relationship, you're effed, because only you're going to want to date better. And, your type of mindset, you're lucky you have him now, but eventually, that guy is going to get finer and wiser, and he's not going to put up with your ish anymore, which is actual facts. I'm surprised he's putting up with it now, but men, a lot of men put up with ish that they shouldn't. But anyway, to say, women have it harder and she's in a whole relationship, and it's just like, but it's easy for you. It was easy for you to get him, and it'll be easy for you to get another guy. But what makes it hard is, are you going to find another guy you're going to like, that you're going to be willing to take direction from, respect, and all that stuff? And it's like, no, you can't even hold yourself accountable for your mistakes if you can't acknowledge when you're wrong, when you can't even respect the host of this show, a man, Myron, or Fresh. How are you you're not going to respect your next relationship, and you're probably disrespecting your man in your current relationship. And I couldn't help but agree, and also the other black girl called that out. That was sitting next to me called it out. So yeah, it is what it is. A lot of people, I posted the clips that were on, I posted little clips. I looked up times I was talking, and I posted them on my Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all that. And I lost a lot of followers. I lost not a lot, like 20 or so on Instagram, and but only on Instagram. On TikTok and X, it was fine. But I thought that was interesting because people don't like Myron. They really don't. Not Fresh so much, but Myron specifically, because, his political views are out there. Trust me, I know. I've watched his clips and his videos and his interviews, all that. And it's so crazy that people think, like, just because you agree with somebody on certain things, like, we weren't talking about politics at all on this episode. Obviously, we're talking about relationships and gender dynamics, right? I agreed with Myron a lot on the things he said. And but I don't agree with some things he's done in other spaces, and that's totally fine. It's like all of a sudden people think like just because you agree with them in this aspect means you believe or you agree with them on everything. And if you don't condemn them for the other things that they believe that you don't believe, somehow you're automatically saying you agree with those things. And it's just like, no. We're on a show. I was agreeing with the things he was saying in the moment, and that's that. It's so annoying nowadays that, people don't use their brains, it seems like, anymore. Like, obviously, you're not going to agree with all your friends' belief. And if you do, that's weird. That's not normal. And I bet you that's not 100% true. If you really dig deep into your relationship with your friend or boyfriend or whoever, you realize you disagree on other things, and that's okay. You don't automatically have to hate that person because you disagree with them on something. Like, grow the F up. Someone commented, said they stopped following because they realized you are in a relationship. Oh, maybe that was it. But I said that, again, they asked you if you were in a relationship in the beginning of the show. And I said that. I said I have a man. But if that's the case, it's also petty. But yeah, it's so crazy. Like, and the thing is, Myron does talk in extremes, saying that women aren't good for anything other than having a baby, for instance. And that's something I got a lot of pushback on because that's one of the topics and clips I clipped on from the show and posted on my page. But the women that understand, again, if it doesn't, the phrase, if it doesn't apply, let it fly is so set in stone with me. And I know my value, so I don't have to try to prove it to Myron or Fresh or whatever, or whoever. Like, it's just like, yeah, I know I'm good for other things than just having babies. Absolutely. But for the most part, I said, even in the clips I clipped, I said, I wanted these women to disprove Myron's point, saying that all women are only useful for having kids. But in trying to disprove his statement, they just proved his statement even more. They showed they have no emotional control. They have no sense of logic. And literally, and there were no answers on what they could actually provide to society that would be helpful or useful. So again, proving Myron's point. If they said they were doing something, like I could have been like, oh, I have my podcast and I speak to people about truth. No matter how much I'm in my emotions, I try to not be in my emotions. I encourage other women to not be led by their emotions because they're fleeting and misleading. Right? So I have this podcast and I feel like it's impact. I know it is impacting so many people. I get so many DMs, so many people, friends that call me and say they love the things I talk about. Right? So I know I can do other things, contribute to the world in a better light. But this woman, it was so funny. This blonde woman said, I asked her, I was like, what else are you contributing to the world? Like, you being on Netflix, like, what do you really think you're contributing to the world that's so fantastical? And she said she was going to bring people to Jesus. And I literally said, like, but people can do that themselves. Like, I don't get what, and then there was nothing specific. She's not doing that on Netflix, on this show, The Cycle or whatever it was called. I think she called it The Cycle. So she's not on that show. I don't know for sure, but I guarantee you, or else she would have said it. She's not on that show telling people about the gospel, telling people to read their Bible, sharing Bible verses that would help them through whatever situation they're going through. So it was, again, complete BS. And if she was actually doing it, she said she was actually doing it, right? And then she'd have an argument. But she knows she wasn't doing that, so she didn't have an argument. So again, proving Myron's point, and there's a difference between, I wanted to say there's a difference between purpose and then goals and aspirations. Like, obviously, you should have goals. No man wants to get with a woman that, has nothing going for her in life, has no drive to do something productive, something that would better themselves. Right? But that's a difference that's a completely different than having a sole purpose. And men and women's purpose is procreating. That's what God made us for, whether you want to believe it or not. But also, men obviously, continue their legacies with impregnating women and having kids. They also, build up society. They build up buildings. They problem solve. They protect. They do all these things, right? So, yeah, there was no pushback there because I remember, and also, guys, this girl, like I said, was only 24, and I'm a firm believer, I've mentioned this on my other show, that your frontal lobe doesn't really fully develop till 25. Mine developed a little earlier than that, but for the most part, most young women, young people especially, but young women, their brains don't fully develop until 25 and after. So there was a little bit of grace there. And when your brain fully develops, like just, I don't know how else to describe it rather than a light switch just turning on all of a sudden. And obviously, and all of a sudden, things you used to believe, you don't believe anymore. Things you thought were so serious aren't. Like, it's just like that. It's like you become so awake. It's like entering the matrix, understanding what reality is. You get exposed to what reality is versus your personal reality, your fake reality, right? So yeah, that's why there was a little bit of grace for her. But at the same time, I fear if she continues on this path, just walking off and not having no form of guidance for her, she's going to continue to think like this when she's 26, 27, 28. And it's just messed up. But I'm glad. I'm looking glad she's been on the show this many times, but I don't know. It just seems like it's not clicking, but maybe, hopefully, if she continues to come back to the show, maybe it'll start clicking. Maybe somebody will say something in a way that'll make her understand, how delusional she is about a lot of things. But, that's just me hoping and praying. I don't know. I think Myron's pretty fed up with her being there, but it's content, so they might invite her back. I have no idea. But, yeah, it was just being on the show. I just realized that a lot of women think like this. Like, this is normal. Like, I thought this was kind of crazy, but being in a place like Miami, and this show takes place in Miami, if I didn't mention that earlier. I was in Miami for a week. We were scouting out hotels for my boyfriend's event. And, but being in Miami, there's a lot of women that think like this and think it's okay. And some are actually in really healthy relationship with a man, and a man thinks it's okay because he's been told it's normal. And he thinks it's normal because so many women, like I said, think like this. And it's just like, I appreciate shows like Fresh and Fit because we got to bring shame back. I said that also on the show. We got to bring shame back. We got to condemn this type of behavior because I don't want this to become the new normal for my kids and their kids for the future period, because it's just ugly. And the way, women treat men is just ugly. The same men are fixing your leaky sink and driving you places and making sure, things look nice on the inside and outside. These buildings look nice on the inside and outside. And you're condemning them. You're being rude to them, disrespectful. It's like, girl, a man runs the production on Netflix, whatever show you're currently being a part of. I would bet money on it's ran by a man. The producer is a man. The owner of the company, the creator of the show was a man. But you're over here discrediting men and being just ugly. Help it make sense. We get so bent out of shape with words because they're not said pretty, like a lot of pretty lies are said. If it's not a pretty truth, we don't want to hear it. It's like, no, the truth is ugly sometimes. And yeah, if a guy tells you, your purpose is only have kids, it doesn't sound great, but think about it. What else do you think you're here for? To be a star on Netflix? You were not born God didn't place you on this earth to be a star on Netflix, babe. I'm sorry. And it's like she's still young. Again, so, but it's going to hit her when she's 25, 20, when she's 25, 26, 27, 30 for sure. And she doesn't have kids. She's sitting at home wondering what happened and why she doesn't feel happy. It's because you haven't fulfilled your purpose, which is to have kids. You know, you guys know I used to rent a room in a house with a woman named Yvette, and she was an older woman in her 50s, I think almost 60 now. And she never had kids, never married. And she looked miserable. I don't know what else to say. I was trying to be nice, but no, she's miserable. And luckily, downstairs, a woman moved in later who had a little baby that she invested so much time in. Even though the mother was don't get me started. The mother was a handful. And she used and abused Yvette like crazy. But Yvette didn't mind being used because she felt like she had purpose now that this little girl was in her life. She was dying to be around a little girl to nurture her and love her, because it's innate, it's in our nature to do so. So you give all this pushback and you want to be mad about how things sound. It's just like, it's fact though. But you're still young. I remember when I was 20 years old and I moved here to Los Angeles from Virginia, chasing the dream of modeling. Think I was going to be a big old star, right? Thinking that was my purpose as well. Like you wanted to be a Netflix star. I wanted to be an international superstar, supermodel. But when that didn't happen, I was just like, wait, what? And I was sitting at home alone. I was like, oh, I started realizing I wanted to have a family. At 25, I was like, I want to have a family. And that's what we're meant to do on this earth, guys, whether you want to believe it or not. Another comment says, I'm glad you said you don't want it to be the new normal for your kids. Women are the ones who pass on culture. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it used to be men, but in times like today, it is women. What Myron was saying is that women's most important role would be passing on culture through their children. Yep, you said it on the show. Anyone can play her on Netflix role, but only you can have your children. Oh, you actually watched my show. I love that. Yes. And I clipped that episode. I clipped that saying too on my Instagram. And my boyfriend was like, that's when you won everybody over, when you said that. Yeah. I told her at the end, I was like, think about this. You can be easily replaced on Netflix. If you died tomorrow, they'd have somebody else there playing, more than willing to play your role. But no one else can have your baby. And that's why having children is your designated design purpose. Because it's yours. It's yours and yours only. And politically correct people, annoying people will say, well, oh, now we have surrogacy and now you can have, someone else can have your kid. Okay, leave science out of it. Naturally, no one else can have your baby. And that's why it's so important. It's you, it's yours. That's the problem with today in society, in our culture. People are so invested in things that are not theirs. So invested in something else. I said earlier in the episode, I was like, we're so invested in the things that we know we're not going to get a return on our investment. Well, maybe don't know it in the moment, but when we realize it, it seems like it's too late. Too many women, people in general, but especially women, pour their heart and energy into shows on Netflix for their boss in some type of company. pouring into that instead of pouring into their man at home, pouring into their children. And they wonder why they're miserable. It's because you're pouring into something that doesn't give a damn about you. That you could die tomorrow and they would hire somebody else. So many women want to, climb up the ladder in corporate and go to college. My older sister is thinking about going to college again. She already graduated, did the 4-year, wants to go back. And it was just like, I wanted to be like, for what? For what? To get a better job? Most jobs today, my boyfriend and I were talking about this, they don't even ask about your degree anymore. The type of job she wants, they're definitely not going to ask about your degree. She used to work at Netflix. She's an engineer. It's like, what more can college teach you that you can't learn on your own? We got social media teaching us stuff. We got internet, Google. It's like, what else could you possibly learn to go more toward your goal? Another point, last point. I've ran a little longer than I thought, but we talked a lot about a bunch of different topics on this show. One point that Myron brought up is it's easier for a high earning, a good man, that's in a relationship to get another woman versus a woman who's beautiful, maybe makes a lot of money too, for her to get another high value man. Because men are scarce out here. Good men. Let me make that distinction. Good men are very scarce out here. And a lot of women know that. That's why a lot of women out here are willing to be, they're willing to be sister wives. They're willing to be, the side chick, as long as they're taken care of. You know why that is? It's because they know good men are scarce. There's not a lot out there. And if you manage to get one interested in you, you're going to get with the program. And this other black woman that was sitting next to me, she just did not want to get with the program. When it came to her, she said she had a fiance, and that she, even though she was masculine on the show, she admitted it, hard, loud, masculine, and Myron called her out too, that she's not like that with her man. And I was just like, femininity is not conditional. You're not feminine sometimes, and then masculine other times. You're either 100% masculine, and you're just playing a role with your man, or you're really just masculine all the time and think you're feminine. It's so funny. Women think they're feminine when, they're softer in voice. I remember I used to think that sometimes, like if I was more calm in a situation, that means I was feminine. No, that's not what feminine means. It doesn't mean just a soft voice. It means, agreeable, understanding, smart about certain things, the way you go about things, your mannerisms, how you say certain things, what you say. It's so much that goes behind it, than your tone of voice. She got to realize that. It's funny, after the show, she showed me a picture of her fiance, a black guy, and older than her. He looked about the same age as my boyfriend, like maybe 40s, early 50s. And he's not bad looking. I'm not going to sit here and lie. He wasn't bad looking. But she also mentioned they had kids together. Not her and him. She's had kids from previous marriage. I think he's had kids from previous marriage, and they're, a joint family. I think, she's taking care of him in other ways. So he's probably overlooking her personality and stuff like that. He probably needs somebody to take care of his kids and vice versa. So that's why, she might be cutesy around him, or, maybe not as harsh on the show like she was on the show with him, because she needs a guy to take care of her kids, and he needs a woman to take care of his kids. So, yeah, but it was very interesting. This show was very interesting, and I realized that either I'm super super to myself and I just stay around my boyfriend a lot of times, or and that I don't get to witness these type of women around me. But I also think I love my boyfriend and I conversations. I told him, like, women know not to say the type of things that the women said on this show just around me. Like, they felt comfortable doing so because it was Myron's show. But if this was my show, they'd be more hesitant to think about what they say. Or if they said the first crazy thing they said, I would have pinpointed it so bad. I would have asked the right questions. I would have looked at them crazy, and then they would have backpedaled. I noticed that was even happening when I would follow up, with an accountability question with certain women. They would kind of backpedal on the things they said. And it's like, they know how crazy it sounds. They're just hoping that you're not going to call them out on it. And again, they don't mind, and the hardcore ones, like this black woman versus the other two women they were soft. They were very emotional. They got riled up real easily. But the black woman I was sitting next to, they'll hear it hard from a guy like Myron. Because again, when you have that masculine type of energy, you can go head to head with a man and not be affected. Right? But when a woman is coming soft, like, there's so much, I tell women all the time, there's so much power in femininity and just being soft and understanding all the things I mentioned. It will cause even the most masculine person to be like, oh snap. There's so much power in calmness that goes for men as well, but especially a woman, especially a pretty woman. It would cause even the most masculine woman to even be like, whoa. Because it's like I was showing her something that she's actually supposed to be. And instead of matching her energy, I had self-control and remained in my feminine energy. And that was so shocking to her. Or maybe not shocking, but a nice thing to see. So, yeah, and also in the holding room they had before we went on the show, all the girls were talking about how pretty I was. I had this nice dark blue dress on. My hair was in the braids, slicked back. I had my makeup on and my heels on. Well, they had us actually take off our heels before we entered in. But the conversation was very light. When they were going live, talking ish about their trolling and stuff, I kept it cute. I stood in the back and, just was on my phone texting my man. But it's like they knew. I feel like they knew. I gave off the energy for them to say. They didn't say those viewpoints. Obviously, they wanted to, you can say they maybe wanted to wait until the show happened. But I didn't even get a hint of any of their beliefs in this room that we're in for over 30 minutes. It's because of the way I am. Like, women just know not to come for me and say craziness in front of me. They know it. And they'll test it from time to time. There's always that one person that will test you. But for the most part, women know women. And know when to try them, when not to. And I think I just gave off that energy not to try me. But like I said, I was in Miami for a week. We're scouting out hotels for this Black Manosphere event coming up that my man hosts every year. It's in September. And again, it's crazy that Grant Cardone was also there because he hosts this 10X conference, a conference that, it encourages men to make 10 times their income. And, the Black Manosphere that my boyfriend runs also, encourages men to make better incomes, but also encourages men to be fit. It's a whole bunch of stuff. He has speakers coming in talking about tech. It's interesting that they both kind of do the same thing. And interestingly enough, I did not plan to be on the show at all. I didn't want to. Like I said, I watched it, and I didn't want to look like another one of those dumb feminist type women that come on this show, even if I wasn't speaking the same things they were. I didn't want to be guilty by association, right? But no, my man set it up. I said I'll do it for him. He wanted to make the connection with Myron and possibly have him at our conference. So yeah, I was only there for him. I only wanted that connection. What he wanted, I wanted. And I was like, I'll show up for the show just for you, babe. And I'll get you that connection. I want you to meet him. And I'm here for you. So that's why I was up there. But I don't know. I might be up there again. We're talking about going back to Miami to follow up, because there was a hotel that we really liked. And we just got to see it again. To make sure, maybe more, we're thinking like getting more rooms, because it was just so, the way the setup is perfect for what we're trying to set up for the actual event. So I don't know, might be back on the show. My boyfriend said, shout out to you, go do it. He got so many compliments. His friends were hitting him up saying I did good on the show. So I'm glad that I got so much great views and great attention. Yeah. Because I felt like I didn't speak enough, but also I'm glad I didn't speak too much, because I didn't want to, take away from Myron. If you guys noticed, whenever he spoke, I was like, I'm gonna be quiet. This is his show. I didn't want to overpower anybody. I wanted the people that were looking a fool look like a fool, talk as much as they want to, have the focus on them, look like a fool on their own, and not have me join into that circus. But next time, for sure, now that I've gotten my feet wet and I'm gonna dip my feet into this new pool, I'm definitely going to be speaking more. I'm going to be more assertive and say what I really believe with my whole chest in my calm and collected voice. But yeah, guys, that's all I got to say about that. Great show. I really appreciated the opportunity. Thank you, Myron. Thank you, Walter. Thank you. And then big thank you to my man for setting it up. But yeah, and that's all I got to say about that. I might be on another time. You'll see. We'll see, but you'll definitely know about it, because I'll definitely be posting about it and posting clips. So yeah. All right, guys. Please like this video if you like this video. Please comment always. I love to hear you guys' opinions. And subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss the episode. And I will see you guys on the next one. Bye.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, no, no. Eres perfecta mujer, de la cabeza a los pies. Tú pasas de mi nivel. Tú tienes el piquete, de la forma que tú besas, mami, más simétrica que un origami. De la forma que tú besas, mami, más simétrica que un origami. Eres perfecta mujer, de la cabeza a los pies. Tú pasas de mi nivel. Tú tienes el piquete, de la forma que tú besas, mami, más simétrica que un origami. De la forma que tú besas, mami, más simétrica que un origami. Amarte es mi maña, que lo que toca mi mano se daña. Pero amor es lo que dicen, como un color entre los grises. Yo nunca te fallé, tú no eres cualquiera. Tú eres la mujer, mi corazón anhela. Pasan por ahí todas esas poses que tú conoces. Gracias a mi mujer, ni tu amigo, pero en vivo solo contigo disfruto el show, bebé. Alright, cita, dime pa' dónde vas, que yo te caigo donde sea. Eres perfecta mujer, de la cabeza a los pies. Tú pasas de mi nivel. Tú tienes el piquete, de la forma que tú besas, mami, más simétrica que un origami. De la forma que tú besas, mami, más simétrica que un origami. Eres perfecta mujer, de la cabeza a los pies. Tú pasas de mi nivel. Tú tienes el piquete, de la forma que tú besas, mami, más simétrica que un origami. De la forma que tú besas, mami, más simétrica que un origami. Somos Adán y Eva, y estoy listo pa' tomar el castigo. Yeah, y todo lo prohibido. vivido y los pecados que tú y yo hemos cometido. Hacen por ahí tos y todas esas poses que tú conoces gracias a mi mujer. Ni tu amigo, pero en vivo solo contigo disfruto el show, bebé. Alright, pasita, dime pa' dónde vas, que yo te caigo donde sea. Eres perfecta mujer, de la cabeza a los pies. Tú pasas de mi nivel, tú tienes el piquete. De la forma que tú besas, mami, más simétrica que un origami. De la forma que tú besas, mami, más simétrica que un origami. Eres perfecta mujer, de la cabeza a los pies. Tú pasas de mi nivel, tú tienes el piquete. De la forma que tú besas, mami, más simétrica que un origami. De la forma que tú besas, mami, más simétrica que un origami.